I'm Matthew Remsky. I'm co-owner of Renaissance Yoga and Ayurveda and co-director of the nonprofit Yoga Community Toronto. I live in Cabbagetown, Ontario Street, and after so many skilled deputations that prove the material value of library infrastructure, I'd like to speak a little bit about the philosophy of library space. Our very humanity is defined by introspection, the capacity to find and explore internal sense, to witness our thoughts and hearts, and to reflect creatively upon what we find. The book is our primary technology for increasing the intensity and productiveness of this introspection. The best book is like a mirror that you hold in your hand, which page by page shows you something new about yourself and your world. But the problem with introspection and with books is that both can compound one's natural isolation. And this is where the library is born, a space of social introspection in which each reader is not only enriched by the pursuit of their personal interest, but also by the shared act of learning itself. Counselors, when you were children, you probably felt two things when you first entered a library: awe at the sheer number of books available to you, but then something else struck you dumb for a moment. It was the shared silence of collective wonderment. Everyone at desks and study carrels, young and old, local and immigrant, you felt, subconsciously, people know things, people learn things, people share things. That's what people do. And in that moment, the library space taught you that you are citizens and not customers. And now as adults, it reminds us that we are lifelong learners, so much more than taxpayers. And this all happens under the watchful eyes of librarians, who are kind of like the secular mothers and fathers of the society, kind faces who introduce you to new worlds. Reducing these spaces of shared introspection in any way is obviously absurd. The lushness of library infrastructure, gardened and tended for generations, facilitates poetry, science, civics, ecology, and everything else we actually live by. Why would we ever consider going backwards? You're looking for money. I challenge you to look for it from the opposite direction by changing the question altogether. How much increased funding is needed to help libraries enhance their heritage of safe and open space? How much should we give librarians to help them negotiate the digital age? How much should we give libraries that they have given us so much? And after some philosophy, I hope that counselors all take advantage of their 2 minutes to ask about practical budgetary matters that I bring to the table as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Matthew, are you an online user of books at the library, or you walk right in person?
I walk right in person, and I always have.
I wonder if they have this service there. I just looked up the Warhol effect on the Toronto Public Library.
Yes, and you can book it. You can have it sent to your branch or to Councillor Kelly's branch, wherever.
Apparently, it tells you other books you should also read.
Yes.
Like Art and Today and things like that.
Yeah, it does an Amazon-like selection for each user.
Except for free.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah.
Well, after such a poetic defense of the library system, I would like to hear some practical solutions.
Okay. For a couple of things that you've all heard and considered already, obviously bring back the vehicle registration tax, obviously lift the freeze on property taxes. The land transfer tax can come back, but let me cycle back to the vehicle registration tax. My additional idea here is to actually adjudicate that according to the mileage value of the vehicle in question. So what this would mean is that the vehicle to be registered would be assessed according to its ecological standards, and then assessed for its registration tax accordingly, because the infrastructure cost of a small car, a hybrid car, a smart car rolling into the city is much, much less than the infrastructure cost and the ecological cost of a larger vehicle. So that's one thing that I'd like to add. And then a couple of behavior modification revenue ideas that I've got. They're not my ideas, but I think I haven't heard them yet today. I've been here since 9:30. Has anybody talked about congestion tolls?
No.
We've never spoken about. This has never occurred to council at all.
And other committees.
Occurred to a few of us.
And other committees.
Oh, okay, all right. I'm sure that's been argued against very effectively. So every civilized city, every world-class city is engaging in some kind of congestion toll structure. And I'm not a budgetary expert, and I can't do the math on it, but I imagine that it's extraordinarily profitable, that it would be a strong revenue stream. I know that to drive into Manhattan from New Jersey, it costs $20 or something like that, and that's a congestion toll. And then they've got, within Manhattan itself.
Your time's up.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah.
Those are great practices.
Okay.
Councillor Davis and then Councillor Layton.
Are you aware that Toronto has the busiest library in the world?
Yes, I do. Yes, I'm aware.
Are you aware that our circulation is greater than New York City? And
Yes. Yeah.
Are you aware that our costs on our only benchmarks are actually at the median?
I wasn't aware of that, but I can tell you I can speak to the point of circulation. I have always used Toronto Reference Library. My local branch is Palmerston. It's always packed. I can rarely find a seat, and so I'm not surprised at all at the usefulness.
Are you aware that the visits per library is probably one of the highest in the province?
I'm not surprised at all.
Would you counsel any of the councillors around this table to vote to close the library in a heartbeat?
No.
Thank you.
Councillor Layton.
Thank you very much. Any more practical budgetary matters that you got on that list there? Well,
Yeah, two more. One is I don't know quite how this would work, but I know that I grew up in Etobicoke, and currently there are perfectly beautiful homes that were built in 1940 through to about 1955 that are being purchased for anywhere from between $700,000 to $1 million. And what happens is that the new owners flatten them and then build new homes that go straight to the property lines and very ecologically intensive. And I'm wondering, are there any demolition taxes associated with that kind of changeover? Because it not only is it heartbreaking to see that amount of money go into the purchase of a perfectly beautiful home that's been well taken care of by usually about 2 generations of people now, 2 generations of a family, but to also see all of that landfill waste go off and a square footage arise that probably isn't necessary. So I'm just wondering about that.
40 seconds. We need that fourth one.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. To improve revenue, I guarantee the executive committee that if everyone took a course in nonviolent communication, meetings would go much more quickly. The amount of acrimony in the room and the divisiveness betwixt downtown interests and the outer ring interests would plummet. So I think that's an incredible cost-saving measure. It's very, very cheap. It would take an afternoon, really. Good training. Yeah.